Good morning, everyone. Reading this morning, starting with lesson 54 for Emerging with Shiva, the Leaders of Tomorrow. Those among the youth of today who have had some measure of attainment, of which there are many, will be the leaders, businessmen, politicians, and educators of tomorrow. As the New Age comes more into fulfillment, they will be able to work effectively in all states of the mind, consciously identified with the overshadowing power of the clearness of perceptive vision of visible white light within the body and through the mind. Still others, disciplined beings of a vaster vision and more profound purpose, will become the mendicant sannyasin, the sage, the catalyst teacher, the pundit philosopher, all working as individuals together to keep the teaching of the classical yoga path to enlightenment alive and vibrant on planet Earth yet another 6,000 years. Remember, when the seal is broken and clear white light has flooded the mind, there is no more a gap between the inner and the outer. Even uncomplementary states of consciousness can be dissolved through meditation and seeking again the light. The aspirant can be aware that in having a newfound freedom internally and externally, there will be a strong tendency for the mind to reconstruct for itself a new congested subconscious by reacting strongly to happenings during daily experiences. Even though one plays the game, having once seen it as a game, there is a tendency of the instinctive phases of nature to fall prey to the accumulative reactions caused by re-entering into the game. That's a very important point. When we manage for the first time to get ourselves into a contemplative state of mind and hold that the newfound freedom internally and externally, there will be a strong tendency for the mind to reconstruct itself a new congested subconscious by reacting strongly. So it's like we're used to the house being kind of dirty and we manage to clean it once, but there's a tendency to let it get dirty again because that's the way it's been. So it's a habit. So someone needs to be aware of that habit and work strongly not to let that happen. And then eventually the habit of having reactions in the subconscious won't be there anymore because we will have lived life another way for a sufficient amount of time. So it's a temporary need. Therefore, an experience of inner light is not a solution. One or two bursts of clear white light are only a door opener to transcendental possibilities. The young aspirant must become the experiencer, not the one who has experienced and basks in the memory patterns it caused. This is not something that's that well understood. I know many individuals, when they talk to me about inner realizations, they have in mind that all you have to do is have the realization once. Then you're set for life. But this is telling us that that's not the case. We need to keep repeating it in the present. Whatever the experiences that we've had, the highest experiences, we need to be able to relive them in the present moment. We never want them just to be a memory, something that happened a long time ago. It should be something that happened today. This is where the not too sought after word discipline enters into the life and vocabulary of this blooming flower, accounting for the reason why ashrams house students apart for a time. Under discipline, they become experiencers, fragmenting their entanglements before their vision daily, while doing some mundane chore and mastering each task their guru sets before them. The chela is taught to dissolve his reactionary habit patterns in the clear white light each evening in contemplative states. Reactionary conditions that inevitably occur during the day, he clears with actinic love and understanding so that they do not congest or condense in his subconscious mind. Building a new set of congested forces that would propel him into outer states of consciousness, leaving his vision of the clear white light as an experience in memory patterns retreating into the past. Oh, here Gurudev is giving us an excellent exercise to practice at night. Elsewhere in the Master Course he calls it concentration playback. So at the end of the day, before we fall asleep, we play back the day looking for experiences we reacted to that have not been resolved, and clearing them on a daily basis. If we do that on a daily basis, then we don't build up a new congested subconscious and lose the vision of the clear white light. The young aspirant can use this elementary classical yoga technique of going back over the day at the end of the day in an internal concentration period, holding the thought flow on just the current daily experience, not allowing unrelated thoughts from other days to enter. When a reactionary condition appears that was not resolved during the day with love and understanding, in turning to the inner light, it will melt away, usually under the power of a perceptive flash of understanding. Moving on to another lesson. This is lesson 204 from Merging with Shiva, Thought and Awareness. The mystic, while in the beginning stages, tries diligently through his sadhana to extract his awareness from the thinking area of the mind, while simultaneously trying to perceive without thinking about what he has perceived. Those two things. The thinking area of the mind, and then the area of the mind that perceives the thinking area of the mind. It is the overview of what has been perceived that the mystic endeavors to superconsciously grasp in a series of flashes. He well knows that thinking is the more externalized strata. The mystic constantly, through every waking moment and even during sleep, endeavors to strengthen his acute observation through perceiving the overview of thought strata rather than thinking through them. Kind of like the difference of walking through a city and seeing all the details of buildings and people, or flying over it, shall we say, in an airplane. So you want to be able to fly over it and not just see all the details. You want to be able to grasp the overview. My guru often said, there is a chair at the top. Sit in it and look at the world from that perspective. The mystic constantly sits in this chair looking at mind from the threshold of the Absolute. It is the baser emotions, when stimulated, that bring awareness from inner depths into the thought strata of the mind, thus strengthening human emotions and feelings with powers of reason and memory. Therefore, for those not too deeply engaged in the external emotional traps, certain sadhanas can be performed to regulate and control these instinctive drives. When they are less impulsive and forceful, one has a sense of being able to control one's thoughts. Later on, if the sadhana persists, the sense that awareness travels in and among these thoughts is felt. And still later, the perceptions occur of hovering above thought, looking out upon the thought strata of the mind or a portion of it. To give an example of the thought state and a deeper state of not thinking but perceiving thoughts, imagine sitting before a television set. The set has not been turned on and you are thinking about various things that involve you personally and wish to distract awareness from them by watching a television program. When you turn to the program sitting across the room from the set, you have the sense of perceiving the thoughts, moods, and emotions of the program without necessarily thinking yourself. You perceive. Similarly, the mystic can be called the watcher of the play of life, for he is totally identified with his inner depths, rather than the thought strata and structures he perceives. The mystic lives in a state similar to that of a child, for a child does not think, but perceives. He, of course, reacts emotionally to some of his perceptions, but it is only when he reaches 12 or 14, sometimes younger, that he begins to enter the thought strata of mind. The mystic has deliberately arrived at this state of the child through sadhana and, of course, has awakened the facilities in himself to go into the next succeeding, even more refined areas of consciousness. This next one is very interesting. The entire concept of creating a thought, or thoughts of the mind already being in existence, or thoughts and concepts disintegrating or being destroyed because they are no longer used, is totally dependent upon the nature of the sadhana of the mystic. In other words, these three ways of looking at thought are all correct, and which one you end up doing depends on the sadhana you're doing. There are 4 different perspectives in looking at the mind from within oneself. In Shum, these 4 perspectives are called Shumif, Mulif, Simnif, and Dimfi. And of course, many more combinations of these perspectives can be utilized and have been, thus creating the various philosophical and metaphysical outlooks that we know today. How thought is seen within one's mind totally depends on the positioning of one's individual state of awareness. This in turn depends upon prior sadhana he has performed. So to remind us of the perspectives, Shumif. Shumif is the one we use in meditation. So Shumif is the idea that everything exists in the mind at all times, and I, as awareness, travel to what already exists. And then if I want to, I travel from that area of consciousness to another area of consciousness. That's Shumif. Mulif is philosophy, understanding the philosophical concepts involved in Hinduism. Simnif is science, the perspective of exploring matter. So we're gaining knowledge by exploring matter. And Dimfi is an interesting combination. It has to do with being focused on another being. So the normal way of doing that in Hinduism is, of course, the deity in the temple. Focused on the deity in the temple. So the deity is separate from us, so we're focused on a being separate from us, trying to get closer to that being, trying to get blessed by that being, and that, of course, in English is called theism. But it also includes other beings. So Gurudeva, in his write-ups on it, talks about beings in space. So anything that involves getting involved with other beings outside of yourself is the perspective of Dimfi. Devas, Mahadevas, outer space beings, it all falls into that category. And it's very different than Shumif. So Shumif is our meditation, and Dimfi is our temple worship. And we'll take a look at those a little bit more next phase. Om Namah Shivaya. Have a wonderful day.